Anansi's 9 Suppers by Catherine Rogers. Anansi the spider was clever, and he loved a good hot meal, but he did not love cooking, or any kind of work really. One afternoon, as he felt pangs of hunger, he decided to walk through the village. According to the village's rules of hospitality, it was rude not to share food with a visitor. Rabbit cooks well, he thought, so I will visit him right at supper time. Now, Anansi had a reputation for mooching, getting something from someone in a selfish way by begging. So Rabbit was not surprised when Anansi arrived just as the sun sank towards the horizon. "Rabbit, my brother, how are you?" Anansi asked.
"Very well, Anansi.
"And you?" Rabbit replied. "I'm happy to see you, and hungry." "You must stay for supper then," Rabbit replied, sighing, before adding innocently,
"You don't mind washing the greens and starting a fire, do you? I'll prepare the rest, and we'll have a fine hot meal before you know it."
Well, I have a few things to do nearby," Anansi answered, spinning a loop of silk and wrapping it around one of his legs. "Just give this a sturdy tug when the food is ready, please." And off he scrambled to Tortoise's burrow. "Sister Tortoise, how are you this lovely evening?" he called, peering into the darkness. Tortoise rolled her eyes to herself, but smiled politely at Anansi. "How nice to see you, and so close to supper time. Would you join us for some stewed beans?" "Yes, I would be delighted," Anansi said, gazing longingly past her at the fragrant pot of beans. "First, would you fetch water from the creek for us to enjoy with our meal?" Tortoise asked, holding out a heavy earthenware pitcher. "Please get enough for everyone, even if you need to make more than one trip." "Of course, but—" He looked at Tortoise's large family. I forgot that I have another little errand." He rapidly spun another loop of silk and wrapped it around yet another leg. "Give it a good hard pull when your wonderful stew is ready." Away he went. "Greens and then bean stew will make an excellent meal," he thought to himself. "How full I will be!" Just then, inhaling a wonderful scent, he looked around and saw Monkey's home. "Friend, how delightful your supper smells! What are you making?" Without waiting for an invitation, Anansi entered, lifted the lid, and peered into the pot at a rich orange dish. "Yams with honey and spice," Monkey said, replacing the lid. "I wonder if you would care to join us," he said, a little frostily but keeping his composure. "I'd love to," Anansi said, grinning and taking a seat with Monkey's family. "However, I should say that it's not quite ready," Monkey began, and soon Anansi had left another silk loop around another leg. And so it went, at Snake's hole, in Mouse's nook, at Sparrow's nest, Ant's mound, and even Frog's tree, until Anansi had a loop around every leg. "What a feast I will have!" Rubbing his belly and laughing gleefully at his hard-working, hospitable friends, he sat down at the creek, awaiting a tug. Twang! Rabbit was pulling hard on the silk loop around Anansi's front right leg. Anansi eagerly hurried toward Rabbit's home, but then came another tug on a hind leg. "Oh dear," Anansi thought, "Sparrow's nest is on the other side of the creek." Twang! Another strand went taut. Twang, twang! One after another. Twang, twang, twang! All grew tight. Soon, Anansi was dangling over the creek, pulled in every direction. His legs stretched and stretched until, to his astonishment, they had become very long and very skinny. Anansi felt the loops slip off his newly skinny legs, one by one. Soon, he plopped into the creek, or onto it. He skated unevenly across the surface on his newly long legs. On the shore, he looked down at his legs ruefully and feeling too embarrassed to visit his friends, he made his way home and prepared himself a cold supper. Anansi and the Wise Girl by Ellen Fuse. In a faraway land where the weather is warm and the trees are plentiful, there lived a family with a very clever daughter. Not only was Akila wise, but she also had a special talent. She knew of secret spots where she could find the most delicious fruits in the forest. Here, the mangoes were sweeter, the lemons and limes were larger and had more flavor, and the purple plums made mouths water at just the sight of them. Each morning, Akila would place her raffia basket on her head and set out for a secret spot. Each afternoon, she would return with a basket full of nature's delights. The people in the village always wondered where Akila went to find such phenomenal fruit. But it was Akila's secret, so no one ever asked. They just enjoyed the wonderful fruit. One morning, as Akila sauntered into the bush, a large spider leaped onto the path in front of her. Startled, Akila jumped back and dropped her basket on the ground. Now, Akila had heard about a large spider named Anansi with a reputation for cleverness and trickery. After she recovered from her surprise, she said, "Hello, Anansi. What is it you want?"
Please help me. I'm so hungry and would like to find some fruit that is ripe to eat,"
he said.
"Go into the market. You can find something there,"
she said.
"No! I have nothing to trade at the market,"
said the crafty spider.
"Please take me with you. I hear you know where the best fruit grows. I'll pick just enough fruit to satisfy my hunger."
Taking pity on him, Akila said,
"Well, I will take you there just this once, but you must make a bargain. You must promise never to tell. Will you promise me?"
I promise, I promise, I promise," the spider assured her. Yet, Anansi had no intention of keeping her secret. Knowing the location of the succulent fruit trees would mean he would never have to work hard for food. He might even become rich by opening a small fruit stand and selling the luscious fruits. "All right, come with me. What do you like?" she asked. "I like plums," the spider grinned. She led him to a special spot where a small tree with dark bark was growing. Among the lush oval leaves, there were some delectable plums. "Only take one or two," Akila cautioned. Anansi's eyes grew wide. He charged for the tree, knocking poor Akila down as he clambered upwards. He devoured every single plum. Akila stared in disbelief, got up, and tried to regain her composure. As she opened her mouth to scold the spider, he said, "Sorry, I won't do it again. You see, I was just so hungry." He tried his best to sound sincere, but Akila was not convinced. "I won't take you to any other trees if you behave this way again," Akila scolded. Next, she led the spider to a mango tree. Once again, Anansi scrambled up the tree and consumed a dozen or so ripe mangoes, knocking Akila over as he did so. "I'm so sorry," he said insincerely. "I won't do it again. You see, I didn't know which way which way to go." Akila dusted herself off before she answered. She knew what the spider was up to. In a sweet voice, she said, "Now, it's not really a fruit, and I would never tell anyone about this secret, but do you like honey?" Anansi's eyes danced with delight. "Honey!" He could barely get the word out of his mouth. "Yes, please, please, please!" Akila led him to another spot, deep in the bush, to where there was a tree with a hole in the trunk. "Look in the hole. You will find all the honey you could ever want," said Akila with a sly grin. Anansi did not notice Akila's expression and disappeared into the hole in a second. Gobbling noises could be heard coming from within. After some time, the gobbling noises changed, becoming grunts, and then groans, and then finally a cry for help. "Help! I'm trapped in the tree! I can't get out! I've eaten so much I can't fit through the hole, Anansi pleaded. Please, call for help.
I'll help you. I'll call for help, Akila whispered. Help! Somebody help! Anansi is stuck. No one could hear her, of course, nor could they hear Anansi's cries for help. Akila said sternly, You wouldn't be stuck if you hadn't been so greedy. You'll just have to wait until you can get smaller again. As Akila walked away, she looked over her shoulder and said in a voice of sugar, Oh, do you like bananas? I know where there's a tree. Anansi's Feast by Lorraine McCombs. Now, everyone knows that Anansi the spider is a trickster who does not like to share, especially when it comes to food. This day, Anansi was extremely happy as he smiled and hummed and looked at all the delicious cooked yams on his table. His mouth watered and his stomach growled as he thought about how scrumptious this meal would be. He sat, rubbed his hands together with glee, and picked up a yam. Just as he was about to take a huge bite, a knock sounded at his door. Anansi! Turtle sang out. Oh no, Anansi whispered. It's Turtle. He must have smelled my yams and will want them. Even though he was stingy, Anansi knew it was the custom to share what you had with company. Why did Turtle have to come visiting now? Reluctantly, Anansi rose and trudged to the door. Who's there? He asked politely. It is I, Turtle. Anansi sighed, opened the door, and looked down on Turtle's smiling face. Oh, Turtle, Anansi answered with a fake smile. He opened the door wider and watched as Turtle walked right in before Anansi could even invite him. Yams! Turtle exclaimed. His stomach rumbled at the sight of the steaming, buttery yams. May I? He looked hopefully at Anansi. Yes, of course, Anansi told him, the pretend smile still there. But your hands! Anansi feigned disgust as he looked at Turtle's hands. You can't eat it with dirty hands! Turtle glanced at his hands. They were dirty. I'll go wash them at the stream. I'll be right back. He left Anansi and walked the dusty road to the nearby stream. After Turtle left to wash, Anansi quickly set about eating the yams. He was halfway through them when Turtle returned. Of course, Anansi allowed him in, but then he looked at Turtle's hands again. Why, Turtle, Anansi fussed. It appears that you have deceived me. You haven't washed at all. In astonishment, Turtle stared at his dirty hands, when suddenly he brightened. I know what happened, Turtle explained. It's the dust from the road. I'll go wash again. Excuse me, Anansi, Turtle apologized. He lumbered back to the stream. While Turtle was gone, Anansi greedily finished eating the rest of the yams. Meanwhile, Turtle, now with clean hands, took the long way back to Anansi's house through the grass to keep his hands clean. Anansi met him at the door. Oh, Turtle, I am so sorry. You took so long that I didn't know what happened, so I finished the yams myself. Turtle, still very hungry, knew what had happened, but he just smiled and said, Thanks anyway, Anansi. But why don't you come to my house tomorrow? I'll prepare a nice dinner just for the two of us. Greedy Anansi smiled and vigorously nodded. Why, yes, I'll be there, he said. See you then. When Anansi arrived the next day, Turtle was in the stream waiting for him. Are you ready for a great dinner, Anansi? Turtle asked. Anansi nodded enthusiastically. Follow me, Turtle said. Turtle plunged down in the water and paddled to the stream bottom where he lived. Anansi tried to follow, but no matter what he did, Anansi could not sink low enough to get to Turtle's house. Because he was so light, Anansi kept rising to the water's surface and floating on top. Sadly,
Anansi stood on the shore and looked down at Turtle and the luscious feast Turtle had prepared underwater. Turtle smiled and patiently waved a hand for Anansi to join him. Frustrated, Anansi looked around at the rocks along the shore. Suddenly, an idea hit him. If he filled his coat pockets with rocks to give him weight, he could sink to Turtle's house. Finally, loaded down with enough rocks, Anansi jumped into the water and easily sank to Turtle's house and the great feast. "Anansi, you've arrived," Turtle said happily. "Here, give me your coat. We can't eat with coats on." But, Anansi stammered as Turtle helped him out of the coat. With his rock-filled coat gone and nothing to hold him down, Anansi immediately floated back to the water's surface. Anansi stared at the lovely meal he could see at Turtle's house. Still hungry, Anansi sadly ambled back to his own house, realizing his own greed had cost him a great meal.